The Vikings are staring down a situation they absolutely did not expect to be in this quickly. When Minnesota let Sam Darnold walk last offseason and handed the keys to J.J. McCarthy, the logic made sense on paper. McCarthy was the future. The roster was strong. Kevin O'Connell had a reputation for elevating quarterbacks. The idea was simple. Take a short-term step back if necessary, develop the young guy, and let the long-term upside pay off. Instead, the Vikings are 6-8. McCarthy has looked overwhelmed when healthy, unavailable when not, and the quarterback they willingly moved on from just helped catapult Seattle to the number 1 seed in the NFC. That contrast is impossible to ignore. This isn't just hindsight bias. This is about timelines colliding in a way that's uncomfortable for a front office that believed it had one clear direction. Minnesota's roster is not a rebuilding roster. It's not a wait 3 years and see roster. It's a roster built to win now, or at least to compete deep into January, if the quarterback play is stable and efficient. And right now, it isn't. McCarthy's first season has been rough in ways that go beyond box scores. The production hasn't been there, but more concerning is how it looks on film. The offense feels compressed, throws come late, reads hesitate, drives stall not because of explosive mistakes every time, but because of small ones stacking on top of each other. That's often what young quarterbacks look like when they're not ready. And that's not an insult, it's a reality of the NFL. But patience is a luxury Minnesota may not actually have. Justin Jefferson is in his prime. Jordan Addison is ascending. TJ Hawkinson is still a matchup problem. The defense, while imperfect, is good enough to win with competent quarterback play. This is not a team that wants to spend another season explaining that development matters more than wins. That's why the idea of the Vikings paying a tax to pivot away from McCarthy, even temporarily, is suddenly very real. When Jeff Howe mentions an NFC tax, that phrase matters. Teams don't just trade quarterbacks within the same conference without extracting maximum value. San Francisco knows exactly what it would be doing by sending Mac Jones to a team like Minnesota. They wouldn't just be moving a backup, they'd be strengthening a potential playoff opponent. And yet, Minnesota might be desperate enough to consider it anyway. Mac Jones is a fascinating name in this conversation because he represents something McCarthy doesn't right now. Certainty. Not stardom, not upside. Certainty. Jones isn't going to wow anyone with arm strength or off-script brilliance, but in Kyle Shanahan's system, he's shown he can operate structure at a high level. Nearly 70% completion rate, a passer rating pushing 100, more touchdowns than interceptions, and most importantly, the offense doesn't fall apart when he's under center. That matters a lot more than fantasy upside when you're trying to win with a loaded roster. The Vikings' offense under O'Connell isn't asking for a superhero. It's asking for someone who can distribute the ball on time, protect possessions, and allow the skill players to dictate outcomes. In theory, McCarthy was supposed to grow into that. In practice, he hasn't, at least not yet. The injury factor complicates everything further. Missing significant time in your rookie season doesn't just slow development. It warps it. Reps matter. Continuity matters. Confidence matters. And McCarthy has been stuck in a cycle of trying to regain footing rather than building momentum. Every return feels like a reset. Every mistake feels heavier. At some point, the question stops being, can he be good? And becomes, can we afford to wait? That's where the idea of pulling the plug, even partially, comes in. This doesn't necessarily mean Minnesota gives up on McCarthy forever, but it could mean they decide he shouldn't be learning on the fly, with playoff expectations looming. It could mean bringing in a quarterback like Mac Jones to stabilize things, compete immediately, and raise the floor of the offense while McCarthy regroups. That kind of move would be an admission, not of failure, but of miscalculation. The Vikings bet that McCarthy would be ready faster than he is. They bet that coaching and supporting talent could accelerate the process. Sometimes that works, sometimes it doesn't. And when it doesn't, smart organizations adjust rather than double down out of pride. Of course, there's risk on the other side too. Mac Jones has a history. His time in New England collapsed. His stint in Jacksonville didn't inspire confidence. The resurgence in San Francisco is real, but it's also happening in one of the most quarterback-friendly environments in the league. Minnesota would have to believe that what they're seeing now is sustainable, not just system-driven competence. And then there's the cost. An NFC tax could mean premium draft capital or meaningful assets for a quarterback who isn't viewed as a long-term franchise answer. That's a hard sell, especially if McCarthy is still on the roster and still a first-round investment. You risk creating a quarterback room with tension, confusion, and mixed messaging. But doing nothing carries its own cost. Every loss chips away at buy-in. Every wasted season burns a year of prime talent. Every comparison to Sam Darnold, now thriving elsewhere, adds pressure internally and externally. Fans notice, players notice, owners definitely notice. This offseason could quietly define the direction of the Vikings for the next 5 years. Stick with McCarthy and commit fully, accepting growing pains and hoping the leap comes, or hedge aggressively, pay the tax, and try to salvage a roster that's too good to waste on developmental struggles. There's no perfect option. There rarely is. But the fact that this conversation is even happening tells you everything you need to know about how far off script this season has gone for Minnesota. They didn't expect to be here. They didn't expect McCarthy to look this raw, and they certainly didn't expect to watch the quarterback they let go help another team claim the top seed in the conference. Sometimes the NFL doesn't wait for your plan to catch up. The Vikings now have to decide whether patience is still a virtue or a liability. The Minnesota Vikings decided to move forward with J.J. McCarthy last offseason, allowing Sam Darnold to walk in free agency. Given that the Vikings went 14-3 with Darnold last year and just watched the quarterback vault the Seattle Seahawks into the number 1 seed in the NFC on Thursday, they may be having second thoughts. That's especially true considering McCarthy has looked largely unimpressive throughout his debut campaign under center, and Minnesota currently sits at 6-8 as a result. McCarthy has not only delivered uninspiring play in 2025, but he has also missed significant time due to injuries. The season has unraveled into a complete mess for the Vikings, and now questions are emerging about whether the team could pivot in a different direction this offseason. Jeff Howe of The Athletic suggested the Vikings could explore a trade for San Francisco 49ers quarterback Mac Jones, though it would likely come at a steep price. However, the Vikings might have second thoughts about allowing McCarthy to develop on the fly, as their roster is built to win with quality QB play, Howe wrote. They'd be a wildly intriguing spot for Mac Jones, though the 49ers might require them to pay an NFC tax. San Francisco signed Jones to a 2-year deal last spring to serve as Brock Purdy's backup. But with Purdy missing a sizable portion of the season due to injury, Jones has started 8 games. In those appearances, Jones has thrown for 2,151 yards, 13 touchdowns, and 6 interceptions, completing 69.6% of his passes with a 97.4 passer rating. The former first-round pick began his career with the New England Patriots in 2021 and made the Pro Bowl as a rookie. His play declined over the next 2 seasons, leading to a trade to the Jacksonville Jaguars, where he made 7 starts in relief of an injured Trevor Lawrence and posted 8 touchdowns against 8 interceptions. Jones has since revived his reputation with the 49ers and could be a sought-after quarterback once